Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 393. If it weren't for the comeback in the ninth inning last night at Dodger Stadium, this was going to be a morose podcast as it relates to the Brewers. Just a rough one in San Diego, starting that 7-game West Coast trip. On top of that, the Cubs have been en fuego, so you were starting to feel it a little bit heading into yesterday, that the Cubs are breathing down your neck. Right now, they're in a softer spot of their schedule, and the Brewers are finally, after about a month of not great offense, finally seeing that bite them a bit in San Diego. And then it looked like it was going to happen again last night, but they rally in the ninth inning with 1 out and nobody on, down 2 runs. They rally for 4 straight hits, 5 hits in the inning, take the lead, and McGill shuts it down for a massive save. Arguably, and there's some recency bias here, arguably the biggest win of the year. No argument that it has to be top 2 or 3, I would say, for this year, the 5-4 win in LA last night. We'll break that down. We'll talk about the Padres series and then some injury stuff again heading into last night. Brice Turang now is dealing with a knee issue. I guess he had an MRI that came back clean, but they're getting a second opinion. Don't love that. I don't know why you'd need a second opinion on an MRI that came back clean, but they are doing that. And it sounds like he's likely down the entire Dodgers series, so you are just struggling with that middle infield right now. Luckily, you got Joey Ortiz back, a sentence I thought I would never say. And he played a big role last night. So we'll break all of that down. We'll talk Packer preseason opener in Pittsburgh last night, the Trey Smack game. Special teams look pretty good. They actually look pretty good. The rest of it, kind of whatever. Jordan Love and the Ones played one series. Aaron Rodgers did not play last night. Mike McCarthy making his debut as the Steelers head coach back in his hometown. We'll discuss that. It was NBA schedule release day yesterday. What do you think? How many, if you haven't seen it yet, how many nationally televised games do you think the Bucks have in a non-Giannis world? I would think they averaged between 35 and 40 national TV games during the Giannis era. What do you think they have? We'll talk about it at the end of the podcast. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. He ties! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, and and there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Welcome in on your Friday morning. Like, rate, and subscribe if you can, especially those ratings. They help out a lot. They help get the word out there. They help us pop up on algorithms, or algos, as I see the kids are saying now. Algorithms. So please do that if you can. Don't forget the email is strangebrewpod@aol.com. Strangebrewpod, all one word, at aol.com. We'll have a mailbag episode probably maybe right before the NFL season begins. I think that feels like a good spot that Friday before. So also, programming note, where's my Will Ferrell? Here we go. My Will Ferrell is George W. Bush. As I said on the Monday episode, I think after 4 grueling weeks of work where I had to work Monday through Friday, 4 weeks in a row, it is time for some downtime. It is time to burn some vacation. So,
the job, making the tough decisions.
Yep.
24/7.
Mm-hmm.
That's 24 hours a week. 7 months a year.
You can count on me. So yes, after 4 weeks of work, after how many other vacations have I had? I actually did get a text around the B93 morning show this morning that said, it basically said, John, I know you joke about this, but how many vacation days do you get in radio? Here's what I think happens. I don't get any more vacation time than most people. I don't think. I'm pretty sure, well, I've been working with this company now for 20 years, and we keep on adding on. The longer you're with the company, the more vacation you get over the course of time. I think I do get now 18 days or 20 days a year, and you can carry over 10 at the end of the year. So you always try to carry over at least some so you have a building block for the next calendar year. Here's what I think happens, though, in the radio world and why people think I'm always gone. It's because I'm always gone. But otherwise, I think what happens is I don't take... Now, next week, I'm off the whole week. I would say we do that once a year. My wife and I do that once a year where we're gone a whole week or most of a week doing whatever. Baseball stadium tours or national parks tours. This one's going to be a national park vacation. So we don't do a lot of full week vacations, but I do a lot of taking a long weekend. We take a 4-day weekend to go to Door County, which we're doing in October. That'll be the next vacation. That'll be the next one. But there will be more than 4 weeks. When I get back on the 24th of August, there will be then 7 weeks in a row, I think, maybe even 8, where I work all the way through, and then we've got the Door County. We always do Door County in October. But I do a lot of that. I take 3-day weekends, 4-day weekends, that kind of stuff. What I think happens from a radio listener perspective, from the difference of the person talking blah, blah, blah into the mic and the person listening on the other end, I think what happens is when you're a radio DJ and you're a Monday through Friday, AM drive or PM drive especially, and people just get used to, that's the guy, that's the person that's on the air right now. This is the stupid crap they talk about. This is the stuff they do every day. And we do. I mean, on the morning show now we've cultivated, we do Tuesday mornings, we do 2-Pack Tuesday, we do back-to-back songs by the same artist throughout the morning. We do What's New Wednesday, we get ratings on new music. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Nobody likes anything. That's what I've learned on What's New Wednesday. Nobody likes anything new. Play 90s country. Throwback Thursday is 90s country. And the thing that started everything was Free for All Friday, where we just kind of mix up the playlist. Hit shuffle. Remember that? When you do that, hit shuffle on the playlist on Friday mornings. So we have these markers every day. And I think what happens is when I'm gone for a day or two in a week, in the radio listeners' minds, it's a disruption to the routine of Monday through Friday. And they take that as, you've been gone this week. I think if I take one day off, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, I just think this is how it works. And I think that's how it works for if I were on the other end of the radio too. If I take Friday off, it's a wrench. It's a disruption in the regular listeners, what they expect to happen every day. And 1 or 2 days off, it's almost like you took the whole week off. Like you ruined my week. Now we're not doing the Free for All Friday stuff. We're not doing Fish Fry Friday. We're not doing What's New Wednesday, because when we have fill-ins, I always tell a fill-in on any radio show, don't do what I do. Please God, don't do what I do. There's got to be a better way. Give the B93 audience a chance to hear what a real radio DJ would do, what a real morning show would be. That's what I want our fill-ins to do. So I don't want to tell fill-ins on any radio show, not just mine, but if anybody on our station is on vacation, we've got fill-ins. I say, do what you would do. Do the show that you would do. Don't try to mimic what I would do, what Matt, our afternoon guy, would do, or Mike, our midday guy. Just do what you would do. So a lot of that normal stuff kind of goes by the wayside when I'm gone, but those are ear markers. And I think if I take a day or two off, it's almost like I took the whole week off. And I think that's how people interpret it, maybe. I honestly think that's what happens. But I don't know that I have a ton more vacation than anybody. Maybe a little more. Maybe a little more vacation than some. But we're trying to get to all the national parks. It's never going to happen. And they keep adding them, too. Every year it feels like they add another national park. We're just trying to keep our feet wet here. We're just trying to keep our traction on this goal. So we've been to, I think, 16. I think it's about the same. I think we've been to 16 or 17 baseball stadiums. We want to get to all of those. And I think we've been to about 16 or 17 national parks. Acadia is my favorite national park we've ever been to. Zion's up there. Arches is up there. There's a lot of them. We've been to a lot of good ones. But we're going to knock 3 off. And we've got a punch board or a pin board that we put pins in anytime we go to one. So we are going to do 3 starting tonight. So I'm doing this podcast. My wife works all day. She gets home at about 5 o'clock. And then we're going to go. I mean, we're going probably half an hour after that. We are first going to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. And I'm a little not nervous, but I'm not great in confined spaces. I don't love going underground into confined spaces. I realize that those caves have been there for a long time, and it's a popular destination, and a lot of people take tours in those caves, and nothing bad happens. There's just something about going underground in a confined space I don't love. I think my family and I think we did a cave tour in the San Francisco area maybe at one point. I do sort of vaguely remember that from when I was a kid on a road trip back in the day. But that's the first stop is Mammoth Cave. So that's about 8 hours. So tonight we're going to drive probably 4.5 hours to the Indianapolis area. Now I'm still debating how I'm going to do this part of it. So there is our buddy Danny P, longtime friend of me from our college days in Stevens Point and working at 90 FM up there. I think he was right after me. I think he was on the executive staff right after me, after I left. So he had nowhere to go. He had nowhere to go but up. Got to be better than that John guy. But he emailed the podcast email because I've been talking about this trip. And he said, hey, just a heads up. He also gave a shout out to my buddy Pat, mutual friend Pat. And he said, hey, just so you know, I did a very similar trip to what you're doing. Mammoth Cave, the Smokies, Congaree, then back. And he actually included the Indiana Dunes, which is a relatively new national park. But we did that one, I think, 2 or 3 summers ago. That one's fun, too. So he did the Dunes, and then he made a stop. It looks like it's about 20 minutes west of Indianapolis. It's in a city called Greencastle, Indiana. And Greencastle, Indiana is the home to a restaurant that my buddy Danny and I, and a lot of people from my era in Stevens Point, a restaurant that existed in Point for a while. It's a place called Marvin's. It's a very college place. I think I shot Marvin in the face. Great line in Pulp Fiction. One of my favorite lines, one of my favorite moments in Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite moments of somebody dying in Pulp Fiction. I think I shot Marvin in the face. It is a very college place. I wouldn't say it's a chain. I think at the most, at their max, they had like 4 or 5 spots in the country, maybe 6 spots in the country. And this is the OG. The Greencastle, Indiana one is the original. And then they went to Stevens Point, I want to say my sophomore year, so we're talking 2004-ish. And I can't tell you how much Marvin's we ate. I mean, Marvin's and Topper's Pizza were the bottom of our food pyramid. I didn't have heartburn. I don't know how that happened. How did that happen? I didn't get heartburn. I didn't get indigestion. I didn't get any of that back in the day. We were hammering Natty Ice and Marvin's and triple orders of sticks at 2 a.m. Felt fine. Right as rain in the morning. Right as rain after a 10-hour coma. But we went to Marvin's a lot. Now, Marvin's has double cheeseburgers, but they're not stacked on top of each other. They're kind of in a row. And it's on a longer bun, a hoagie bun. And it has just been obliterated with garlic salt. I mean, they throw so much garlic salt, and it's a delight. Now, I don't know if my 42-year-old palate is going to be the same as my 21-year-old palate. I'm a little worried for that I'm going to bite into this burger with expectations of what I liked about it 20 years ago, and now I'm going to think, ooh, that might be too much salt. But they just obliterate the top of the hoagie with, like, garlic sauce and butter and garlic salt. And we got these all the time. And then they had fries. Their fries were pretty good, but then they also had cheese fries. So you'd get this cheese sauce dripping over it. And we got that all the time. So 10 years ago, I went to Point in 2016 for a reunion on the college radio station. Did a shift up there. And I wanted to go to Marvin's, and they had just closed, like, permanently. They closed initially. They were going to retool and restaff, like the Merv Griffin show on Seinfeld where he unplugs it. They were going to retool everything, renovations, get better staff, or get new staff in there, bulk up their staff. And they were going to reopen, but then they never reopened. And I was so disappointed that it was gone. This Marvin's in Greencastle, I believe, is the last Marvin's that exists in these here United States of America. And when am I ever going to be driving around? I guess, Indy, you never know why you might end up there for whatever reason. But how many times are we going to be doing this kind of a road trip? So Danny sent me that email and said, hey, just a heads up. I did this route instead of this route. It adds like half an hour, but you get to go to Marvin's. So I'm going to see if we can track down Marvin's. The garlic salt double cheeseburger on a hoagie is just, again, good 20 years ago. I will review it when we get back on Monday, August 24th, if we stop. I will give it a review. The thing is the timing, like they're not going to be open tonight. We're not going to roll into the Indianapolis area until like 11 o'clock, and they're not going to be open that late. So then do you stop there or time out the leaving tomorrow morning? But then we've got already a cave tour, I think, at noon in Mammoth Cave. So I don't know how it's all going to work out. It might be something we have to hit up on the way back when we have a little bit more time. But we're doing Mammoth Cave, and then on Sunday night we head to the Smokies. That's about a 2-hour drive from Mammoth Cave. We'll be spending most of our time there. I do think part of the Appalachian Trail is in the Smokies, so I might get to see a little bit of that. Going to do a ton of hiking there. Mammoth Cave isn't so much hiking, it's just the cave tours. And then we'll do a bunch of hiking in the Smokies, and then we're going to Congaree because, again, that's about 2 hours east of the Smokies. And how many times? We're not going to go out of our way just to go to Congaree National Park, so you may as well go while you're there. And that, I think, is mostly swampy land. And luckily, we've had just a run of really super humid, thick weather in the Sheboygan County area in the last week to kind of prep us for that. But I think that's what we're getting into. I think we're getting into low 90s temperatures and dew points in like the low to mid 70s. But we're doing a canoe tour in Congaree. I don't know that there's a ton of hiking in Congaree, but there's a lot of that. Gigantic trees and kind of swampland area. But we're going to be doing that. Sounds delightful, right? So we're going to do that. Now that I said it out loud for the first time, I thought, do we really want to go there? And then we're going to drive back the full boat. So we're leaving tonight, and then we leave South Carolina Friday night, I think, next Friday night. And then we've got a 14-and-a-half-hour trip back. We'll have to stop somewhere overnight, but that's going to make our way back. Hopefully we'll get back on Saturday at some point and have that buffer day. You know, you always got to have a buffer day. I cannot preach that enough. Expectation management and buffer days for vacation. You never want to take your vacation to the last day when you have to get back to work 6 hours after you get home. So hoping we get that Sunday buffer day in there, but that's the plan for tonight all the way through next week. So we will have no podcast next week. And we'll be back on Monday, August 24th after that. I am hoping Marvin's hits the same way it did, but I did think about that this morning as we're kind of planning out the drive, and maybe we'll stop tomorrow morning if they're open early before we go to Mammoth Cave. That might be a bad idea, though. That might be a bad idea to eat a giant garlic cheeseburger and cheese fries, drive 90 minutes, and then get in a cave in a confined area with a bunch of strangers. I don't know what's going to be going on in my digestive tract at that point, but that might be the plan. I'm hoping to at least get some Marvins either on the way down or on the way back. But I appreciate that heads up from Danny. I didn't know any of them existed anymore. But we'll be back then after today on Monday, August 24th. So we'll start with the Packers. I think this is a smaller conversation. Preseason game number 1 last night in Pittsburgh. So Mike McCarthy, his first time as the head coach for the Steelers. Do I have a little McCarthy audio? I think I do. Here we go. Here's McCarthy talking about, this might be in mono, but here's McCarthy talking about in the lead up to Thursday, remembering his time in Green Bay, and then we get a classic McCarthy line at the end of this.
Definitely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, our history there is obviously long, and the success we had there. And when you get to spots like this, the personal relationships are, it's the people. You think about, obviously having personal and professional connection to Green Bay is, that's part of my life. But I'm more worried about our pre-snap penalties right now, to be honest with you.
It's a classic Mike McCarthy line. It's just like anything. He always prefaces most of his stuff with just like anything.
I'll be honest with you.
So anyway, Mike McCarthy makes his debut in Pittsburgh last night. No Aaron Rodgers. I know that was a lot of the build-up to heading into last night. Love did spend a little time with Rodgers. He dapped everybody up and everybody hugged. Now, Rodgers did say Rodgers spent 15-ish minutes on a Zoom call with Green Bay media on Wednesday. And they asked him, we've talked about on this podcast, and we've talked about it on the air for weeks and weeks, and I think months, ever since we saw that Pittsburgh was on the preseason schedule. And when the preseason schedule came out, we know McCarthy was already in Pittsburgh. I don't know that we knew Rodgers was coming back, but you kind of had a feeling that he was. And it just made sense. Again, I know this is probably an oversimplification. If you ask anybody that knows me, I have a tendency to oversimplify things. It's probably an oversimplification to say just move the game. Like, just move the game. Just move a gigantic NFL game. Is that so hard? There's probably a ripple effect there that would impact other teams, and then how does Pittsburgh make their money on the gate, all that kind of stuff. But I think that was the obvious play. You had time to do it. It's not like Rodgers announced a week ago that he was coming back. You had like a month and a half or a month where you could have figured this thing out. And they asked Rodgers that on the Zoom call, would he have preferred or did he wish this game was in Green Bay? He said 100%. I would have gotten to go and say hi to a bunch of people I haven't seen in a long time, walk around the field. My guess is, now he didn't play last night, my guess is he would have played a snap or two or a drive if that were at Lambeau Field. And then he did give a shout-out to this restaurant in Swamico. He mentions them so much. We have a couple of people in the building that work in our Green Bay building as well, and I had to ask them, what is the appeal? So he shouts out the Chives in Swamico so much. I don't know if anybody out there has been to the Chives in Swamico. If anybody in the Green Bay area, we've got more Green Bay listeners now since we've had the podcast uploaded on our Green Bay station feeds. If you've been to the Chives in Swamico, the menu looks great. But anytime he brings up Green Bay or coming back to Green Bay or being in that area, he said, I can't wait to get to the Chives. So I asked our folks that work also in the Green Bay building, is it really all that great? And the woman that works for us said, not really. It's fine. I mean, it's a fine restaurant. Kind of a supper clubby vibe, which you would expect. But, yeah, nothing that blows you away, nothing you'd fly in for to get to the Chives in Swamico. But he loves the Chives. But they did ask him, would you have preferred if this game were played at Lambeau? He said, absolutely, 100%. That would have been much cooler for it to be at Lambeau Field. So it is obviously in Pittsburgh last night. Rodgers did not play. Love and the number ones played for a series. Now, last night, the number one takeaway from last night, well, there's a couple things. First of all, on that initial drive, and they only had the number one offensive line out there for one series, maybe two series, I thought Jordan Morgan at left tackle looked pretty good. Again, this is preseason game number one. I'm not super well-versed in were the Steelers playing all of their number ones on the defensive line, their edge rushers. I don't know. We've talked about one of the critical things this year is the offensive line play in general being better, but specifically the number one spot on the offensive line, left tackle. It's been fine with Rasheed Walker, but you drafted Jordan Morgan now 3 years ago to be the guy, and he's been beat out in camp the last 2 years, but now he's the guy. So can he handle that job? It's a big question mark heading into the regular season because we don't know. And all we know of Jordan Morgan is that he's had some injuries, but also he's been beaten out by Rasheed Walker, who by all measure, and this is not a knock on Rasheed Walker, I think he's in Carolina now. I know we talked about there was not much of a market for him once the Packers moved on, which kind of shows you the evaluation of him league-wide. But he's fine, kind of a middle of the pack, maybe half lower tier of the pack left tackle. He was fine enough for 2 years. But the fact that a guy who was okay or mediocre beat out Morgan the last 2 years, it's not like you had some stud left tackle that Jordan Morgan had no chance of unseating. It was kind of a disappointment, I would think, for Goody and the front office that Jordan Morgan could not secure that job earlier than he did. But they move on from Walker, but can he handle it? I mean, can Morgan handle that? And then how does the rest of the offensive line come together? Sean Ryan seems like, okay, you've got the center situation figured out. Now, Zach Tom, his new name, Bako Bewele, I believe is how you say it. He changed his last name. Zach Tom's name is now, they're calling him Zebok, but is Zach Bako Bewele, I believe. You can't do this to me. I can't even pronounce Lara. You can't change your name like that. But he has changed his last name to honor his Nigerian heritage, but he is a stalwart when he's healthy at right tackle. Now, there have been some changes at the guards. I don't know what's going on with Aaron Banks. He is dealing with some kind of injury and doesn't seem like it's getting a whole lot better. They paid him a boatload of money. I thought they would cut him in the offseason. They could pretty much cut him free and clear. Not totally. There would be a cap hit and a little dead cap hit too, but I thought they'd move on from him. They didn't. And then at the other guard position, Anthony Belton, the rookie, was there last year. He has not played well in training camp. So Jacob Monk is getting a shot there. The rookie Jagger Burton, the Jagoffs, they're getting their time to shine in that spot. He played a little bit last night. So there's some unsettlement, I guess I'd say, at the guard position. But Jordan Morgan's the linchpin there. The left tackle spot with a right-handed throwing quarterback is the number one spot on the offensive line. Can a guy in year 3 solidify that spot? And he looked good last night. Other things that I thought looked good, LVN looked pretty good last night. Had a sack. Brandon Cisse, it looks to me like their second-round pick is going to be their starting corner. And I think Benjamin St. Juste, the guy they signed from the Chargers, he might be the other starting corner. We've talked a lot about that as well, about how secondary is still a question mark. You love the safeties. I think I love the front seven for the most part, especially when Micah gets back. But cornerback was a weakness last year when Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine were your number 1 and number 2 corners. And that's what it looked like heading into this year. But the more you hear about Cisse at practice and him getting reps with the number 1s and St. Juste getting reps and Nixon was kind of with the 3s yesterday, I kind of feel like there might be a shift happening there. But he looked pretty good. I mean, I think he's their best corner right now. And then the other thing coming out of last night, I thought the offense, Jordan Love hit a couple of passes, whatever, they looked fine. But the number one thing you take away from last night, Trey Smack. And we've talked about him a lot. We're going to continue to talk about him. He had been uneven in training camp. I think 8 of 13 in his first round or whatever the first series was. So that's a question mark. And we've been over, I think, a podcast or two ago. You're going into a year where you feel like you should compete for a division title, where you feel like you should get a home playoff game or two, and where you feel like you should finally take some steps forward, win a couple of playoff games, make it to an NFC Championship game, maybe make a Super Bowl run if everything kind of comes together, but you've got this rookie kicker. And we had the audio from Matt LaFleur a week ago where he said, look, we've been through this. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. So the vibes, I wouldn't say were great. You had some competition, then you cut Haversick, then you brought in another guy, then you had to cut him to get the second long snapper. So he's the only guy, and he's going to be the guy. From the minute they drafted him, you knew he's going to be the guy. Can he make it through the whole year? If he has a bad beginning to the year, I guess we would see if that was something that happened. But he's going to be the guy. And I don't know if there was a ton of momentum or excitement heading into last night about Trey Smack being the guy, but coming out of it, we're feeling pretty good. He looked good. He really looked good. I don't think any of those kicks he made last night were flukes. They all had great fluidity to them, and the deeper kicks he made, they had some extra sauce on them. So he hits a 58-yarder on the opening drive. That would have been good from 65. I mean, that hit the net. And they wiped that away because the Steelers committed a special teams penalty, so they keep the drive going. Eventually he hits a 37-yarder. Then he does hit a 58-yarder right before halftime that he got on the books. That got them to a point. And then in the third quarter, he knocks home a 38-yarder, and at the time that gave them a 9-7 lead. Now, in the back end of the game, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, Drew Aller, the rookie quarterback from Penn State, looked pretty good for the Steelers last night against third and fourth string defenders. But he led 3 touchdown drives, and he threw 2 touchdown passes. He put up great numbers. So you end up losing 28-9. But to me, the takeaways from last night, the number one offense for the one drive looked pretty good. I thought Jordan Morgan was impressive. I feel like Brandon Cisse is going to be their number one corner. LVN showed you a little bit, and the number one thing was Trey Smack, and LaFleur talked about that in the postgame. Jordan Love said in the postgame that was the number one thing, or the number one victory from last night was how good Trey Smack looked. And, you just hope that can continue on. Now, LaFleur said what you would expect him to say. He's a kicker. So you don't get to go 1 for 5 the next time out because you were really good. It's not like baseball where you go 4 for 5 with a double and a single one night, and then the next night you go 0 for 5, but people think, oh, whatever, you had a great night 2 nights ago. You got to keep hitting him. He's got to keep having performances like that. That was encouraging, though. He looks like he's got the leg. He looked confident. Most of those were right down the middle. The other thing from last night, special teams overall, Cam Accord, the new special teams coach, maybe he's the guy that's going to finally get this going in the right direction for the first time since I don't even know when. Were they good? Was special teams good in the Super Bowl 45 run? I don't know if they were good or bad, or maybe just middle of the road. Who was our special teams coach in 1996 when Desmond came? Did we even have a special teams coach? Who was the special teams coach? Packers, 1996. This might be the first coach if this guy can make it happen, and we can have decent kick returns and punt returns and cut down on the penalties and have kickers making kicks and punters with coffin corners. This might be the first time we've had that. Nolan Cromwell. Holy cow, yeah. Okay, I remember the name now. Nolan Cromwell. Sounds like a World War II general. Nolan Cromwell. 3-star general Nolan Cromwell. But he was the special teams coach from 92 all the way through 97. That was kind of the last time it was a game-changing, right? Special teams where you had multiple kick returns for touchdowns and you had a good kicker. I mean, that was that era. Nolan Cromwell in charge of that special teams unit. But I'd have to say the early returns on the Cam Accord or Accord or however you say his name, I've seen some people pronounce it Achord, but I don't think that's right. But if last night and the early returns are any indication of the direction of the special teams, for the first time in a long time, you're kind of feeling okay about it, or at least we're feeling like they're not a liability. That's all we're looking for. Just don't be a liability. Just don't have a million penalties and put us behind the sticks in terms of field position and miss extra points and field goals that could determine games. That's all we're asking for. I'm not asking for anything above and beyond, but it looked pretty good. They had 3 or 4 returns, punt returns or kick returns in a row with no penalties. I just expect there to be laundry on the field during a Packer kick return, during a Packer punt return. So when there's not, you go, whoa. What happened there? And then there were some penalties on the Steelers. So anytime there's a flag graphic that comes up on a return, I just immediately assume it's a block in the back or a hold on us. And a lot of those were on the Steelers. That was a breath of fresh air. But if you take one thing coming out of last night's 28-9 loss, I would say that Trey Smack being 3 for 3 officially, but 4 for 4 if you include that 58-yarder they took off the board. That has to be the number one thing you would take from last night. Kyle McCord, their third string quarterback, looked pretty good. 12 of 16 for 102 yards. Tyrod Taylor got in for a couple of series, 4 of 8 for 21 yards. Marshawn Lloyd didn't get hurt, so that's something. No Josh Jacobs as of yet. I guess he's battling a groin situation, and then I don't know what's going on, nor would I speculate. That would be something you would not want to do in the radio world, speculating about a legal situation. I don't know what's going on there. As far as I know, the Brown County DA's office is still collecting evidence. I feel like if something big were going to happen there, we'd know at this point. This is like now 6 or 7 weeks ago. So he's got that. He's also dealing with a groin injury. He did not play last night. So Marshawn Lloyd got a couple of reps, and he looked okay. He just didn't get hurt, so that's the number one thing. He is in year 3. We have heard a lot about Marshawn Lloyd and how elite his speed is, and he adds that element they don't really have. Josh Jacobs, a very good running back, but he's an in-between the tackles, more of a grinder. He's not going to break off too many 60, 70, 80-yard runs. If he gets a seam, he might get caught from behind by a safety. That's not the case with Marshawn Lloyd. He's a burner. The thing is, most of Marshawn Lloyd has been a tall tale because we've never seen it. In 2 full NFL seasons, he has played 1 drive. 1. That's it. And I remember on that drive, he kind of showcased some speed to the outside, and you thought, ooh, okay, that's what they're talking about. He's like a Maserati, but he just cannot stay on the field. So the fact that he got 2 drives, 4 carries, 13 yards, and didn't get hurt, that's the number one thing. He did not get hurt. That was another positive coming out of last night. And you did see, too, speaking of returns, going back to that, Sky Moore, who all indications are Sky Moore is going to make this team as a punt and kick returner and is probably the 6th wide receiver. He had a punt return where he gained 14 yards. You can go forward on a punt return? I didn't know. I thought that was against the rules. You mean we could actually pick up positive yards on a punt return? So you had that going for you last night, too. Sky Moore also had a catch. But Goody, talking about Sky Moore a week or 2 ago, basically said without saying he is going to make the team as a kick and punt return specialist and probably the team's 6th wide receiver. So there are some good things to glean out of last night in what ends up being, a 19-point loss. Now, a couple of days off for the Pack. What do we have for practice? They are on the practice field Sunday for public practice at 10:30, then a day off, then Tuesday. Then they are in Denver 1 week from today, the Sunshine State. And then home with Arizona that following Friday for the annual Bishops Charities game on Friday, August 28th. And then, the opener at Minnesota. I have not made a bet on that game yet. Now, we're going to get into... We've got to do we have time to do all the stuff I need to do with a week off? Hold on. When are we starting the bold takes? So that is the last bold take should be Friday, September 11th. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That means we have to start that on the 28th. Oh, yeah, we're good. So we'll have an episode on the 24th. Then we'll start the bold takes on the 28th, one per episode leading into opening weekend. And then that last podcast before opening weekend on the 11th, we may have to do 3 podcasts that week. We have to do our futures where we give you the bets that I like for over season win total, under season win total, future division winners, over under pass yards, over under passing touchdowns, things like that. We've got to do that too. But looking to the week 1 lines, the Packers are a pick'em right now in Minnesota. Now we know they don't play well in Minnesota. Never have, never will. They don't play well there. The Vikings announced this week that Kyler Murray is going to be their starting quarterback. That seemed like a foregone conclusion the second they signed him. It doesn't seem like Kevin O'Connell has any real faith in J.J. McCarthy now entering year 3. And now, hindsight being 2020, 2 years ago, Sam Darnold leads them to a 14-win year, and they're out in the playoffs. They don't re-sign him. They decide to go with year 2 J.J. McCarthy. That's a disaster. Now we're in year 3, J.J. McCarthy, and they bring in the veteran quarterback Kyler Murray to compete with him. And you kind of knew Kyler Murray isn't blowing anybody away, but he's a steady quarterback. He's still relatively young. He gives you some wheels on the outside. He can scramble a little bit, and he's got a better arm than J.J. McCarthy, it would appear. So he is going to be their starter. Yeah, Sam Darnold, they don't re-sign him, and then he goes to Seattle and wins the damn Super Bowl last year. Who would have seen that coming? Not them, clearly, but Kyler Murray, the starting quarterback in Minnesota, as a pick'em, I would have thought the Packers would be favored by 3, 2.5, 3 there. So I have gotten to the final page of submitting the bet. I have gotten to the final page of submit for this bet for I would say a fairly sizable bet on the Packers in a pick'em game. I don't know. It's just the Minnesota component. In my mind, heading into the year, and again, we're going to hash more of this out in the coming weeks, I kind of feel like the Packers, the Lions, and the Bears are all kind of there, right? If any one of those three won the division, won 11 games or 12 games, you wouldn't be shocked. I do think we're going to see a bounce back from the Lions this year. Does that mean they're going to win the division and be the 1 seed or win 14 or 15 games like they did 2 years ago? I don't know, but I think they're going to bounce back from what they did last year. The Bears obviously surprised a lot of people last year, won the division, shocked us at the end of the year 2 times. I feel like they're a regression candidate, and I'm not just saying that because I'm bitter. I mean, partially because I'm bitter, but not totally because I'm bitter. It just feels like they won a lot of close games last year. They pulled a lot of rabbits out of their ass at the end of games. And a part of that, like the Packer game in the wild card round, is the team they're playing not executing and making mistakes, and they capitalize on it. But I do feel like with the way they won their games and the way they won their division, I do feel like Caleb Williams is a legitimate quarterback. He's got weapons. Can they get the defense worked out? Can they get more consistent offensive line play? Feels like they would be a regression candidate. And then the Packers just kind of sit, like we've talked about, in that 9, 10, 11 sort of win range when you go to season over-unders. It feels to me like Minnesota, though, is a step back, right? Or a half step back of where those three teams are. Like, I don't expect Minnesota, even if Kyler Murray plays great, I don't expect Minnesota to win 10 games or 11 games and win the division. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. But I felt like the Packers would be kind of favorites in that game, 2 or 3 points, maybe 3.5 points, but it's a pick 'em. So I think that's probably going to be on the picks we make for Friday, September 11th, heading into that weekend. My guess is going to be that that's going to be in there. We'll keep our eye on that line, but I was very surprised it was a 50-50 call. Anyway, Packers in Denver 1 week from today. I think that's all the Packers stuff. Now let's talk about the Brewers. By God, the Brewers. So the road trip started in San Diego on Monday, and we talked about it on the Monday podcast. Coming off of a 5-2 homestand where you won a series against Pittsburgh, you won a series against Minnesota, the Cubs have been hot, so you enter Monday with a 5-game lead in the division, right? Or was it 6? I think it was 5. So you go to the West Coast. Padres are a red-hot team right now. One of the hottest teams, probably the hottest team in baseball if you break it down by the last 20 games. They were buyers at the deadline, and the Brewers saw both of their acquisitions in the Monday game and the Wednesday game. So they added some pretty good arms at the deadline. Brewers don't play well there traditionally, so you kind of felt like a little trepidation heading into Monday where the Cubs are hot, the Brewers have been winning, but the offense hasn't been great, and now you're headed into a buzzsaw, a really good and hot Padres team. We know what the Dodgers are. That's the 7-game trip. So it starts on Monday. We'll blow through these. Logan Henderson, I thought, was really good on Monday. He deserved a better fate, much like Drake May deserved a better fate or Dustin May. Hate the Drake. Dustin May did on Wednesday. Henderson goes 6 1/3, only gives up 3 runs. Now, Yelly hit a home run on Monday, and they did another lineup change on Monday where he moved Yelly down a week ago, and he's hitting in the 7-hole now, and then he moved Contreras down on Monday because he's been ice cold. I mean, we've talked about he was great in the month of May, great in the month of June, hit 186 in the month of July, is hitting 112 in the month of August, and now we're getting to be about mid-August. So you need to get those guys going, but you can't keep rolling them out there in the 3-4 spot or Yelly in the leadoff spot when they're not hitting. So both of them moved down on Monday. Contreras hit in the 6-hole. First time he's hit below 5 in his Brewer career. And Yelly was in the 7-hole. But it worked out in that second inning. Contreras takes a walk. Yelly goes yard, opposite field, Oppo Taco. And you're thinking, okay, that's exactly what you wanted. And you jump out to the 2-0 lead, 2-1 game in the bottom of the 7th inning. And they tried to get a little too much out of Logan Henderson. He gave you 6 innings. We know that bullpen was worked over the weekend against Minnesota. McGill, Ashby, Uribe, they all worked all weekend, so you didn't have your high-leverage arms available on Monday. So for that reason, and Pat Murphy talked about that in the postgame, look, we didn't have our high-leverage guys. Henderson's pitch count was in okay shape. He had 6 innings of 1-run ball at that point. So we needed to get a little more out of him, and it turned out to be a little too much. With 1 out and a runner on, Jackson Merrill, who had a big week and has had a big month, really, hits a 2-run shot. That put the Padres in front 3-2. And then you just don't want to face that Padres high leverage. That's what makes that team so scary in the playoffs if they get a wild card berth, because they've got the offensive talent. The offense has not been consistent for the Padres, but when you look at that lineup, Fernando Tatis Jr., Cronenworth, Machado, Ty France, Jackson Merrill's been outstanding. And we're going to talk about Luis Rengifo here in a second. But they've got a lot of really talented bats. They just haven't been able to get it all going at the same time. But what scares you about the Padres is now they added Robbie Ray at the deadline. They added Casey Mize, who was great on Monday at the deadline. So you add 2 pretty good pitchers. But the back end of that bullpen with Morahone and Mason Miller. Mason Miller's the best closer in baseball. He's the best thing going right now as a closer in baseball. And the Brewers got to him a little bit on Wednesday. But that's what worries you. If you have to play the Padres in a best-of-3 wild card series or in the NLDS, if you're down in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, it is almost impossible to come back against that team. So you get down the 7th inning, then all of a sudden it's the top of the 8th inning, and you're facing their high-leverage arms, and now you need a run, and the Brewers just couldn't get it going. They lose by a 3-2 final. Henderson was the tough luck loser. He falls to 6-2 on the year. But then on that same night, or the Cubs had off on Monday, so the Cubs started their series on Tuesday. Brewers lose on Tuesday in blowout fashion. And the Cubs win, so you just kind of feel these tremors in the water, the Jurassic Park, the old water tremor in the water cup. So you get into Tuesday, and they had Kyle Harrison on the hill. Kyle Harrison, tremendous in his return from the IL a week ago. 5 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 hit. We talked about it. He was mowing guys down, struck out the last 8 guys he faced, and would have gone back out there, but had those calf cramps in the 6th inning, so he doesn't pitch in the 6th inning. But feeling really good. He had been excellent until the All-Star break. Then he hits the IL, but that first start back from the IL was so strong, and then he just did not have it on Tuesday, and you just knew that Luis Rengifo was going to play a role in this series. So that happened on Tuesday. On Monday, I got a text from a buddy of mine. I didn't realize, I was like him, I didn't realize Luis Rengifo had landed in San Diego, and he's been excellent in San Diego. So Rengifo, the Brewers signed him to a free agent contract before the year began to be kind of a utility infielder, to play some third base, to play some outfield, and he just never got it going. He barely hit 200, did not hit a home run. I think he had 18 or 19 runs driven in, and at some point, he just couldn't get things going in the right direction. They cut him. They release him in June, and he lands in San Diego, and he's been great there. So he gets up to the plate on Monday, and I get a text from a buddy, and it just says, you just know that Luis Rengifo is going to do something in this series because we signed him. He did nothing. We cut him. He's been hot, apparently, for the Padres. But he said, you just know something's going to happen. And something happened on Tuesday. So Kyle Harrison, some poor defense behind him in that 2nd inning as well. Jake Cronenworth double put the Padres up 1-0. And then you had the bases loaded and 2 down. And Luis Rengifo at the plate. And he tattoos one out of the park to left field, a grand slam. And I said, you've got to be bleeping. Only I didn't say fudge. You've got to be kidding me. A guy who hit 202 with no power, with a sub-600 OPS. We cut him. He goes to the Padres. He's been great there. And then he hits a grand slam against us. Holy cow. But and then he texted me again and said, I told you. I told you something like this was going to happen. And that was the game. The Brewers never got into it. They get smoked on Tuesday, 11-2. Harrison in the postgame did not seem happy with the defense, nor should he have been. It was not good behind him, especially in that 2nd inning. And they had a chance in that inning they had a double play, a tailor-made double play in that inning, and what could have been a triple play that would have totally circumvented that whole 5-run inning. And they couldn't get it done. So he wasn't happy about that. I don't think he was super happy about the William Contreras pitch selection in that inning too, but he could have just shaken that off. So I know he's a young guy. Young pitchers don't typically shake off veteran catchers all that much, so maybe that plays a factor there. But if you listen to the Harrison postgame, not happy about the defense behind him, and I don't think he loved some of the pitch calls that Contreras made in that fateful 2nd inning. And the Padres take that game 11-2. Luis bleepin' Rengifo. So the Cubs then win on Tuesday. So all of a sudden, you're looking at a 4-game lead in the NL Central. Then we get to Wednesday. And the Cubs won their game Wednesday, and you had the day game against the Padres. You just felt like, God, can we salvage one here? Can we get one game and get on the right track? Dustin May on the hill. In the world of this pitcher deserved a better fate, Dustin may take the cake with that effort on Wednesday. He pitched so well. He gave them exactly what they needed. You needed somebody to go out there and dominate and not give up hardly anything and pitch deep into the game. You're in the middle of 17 straight games right now. You've got a beleaguered bullpen. You've got an offense that is scuffling. You needed your starting pitcher on Wednesday to avoid the sweep, to go out there and give you the kind of start that Dustin May gave you. And he did it. He did it. And he deserved more, but he didn't get it. He goes 7 innings, pitches into the 8th inning, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. But you just had an ominous feeling all game because, once again, this team could not cobble it together with runners in scoring position. Now, they did grab a lead. Gary Sanchez solo shot. He's been great. He had another big hit in that game. He had another big hit last night, too. And you're at a point now with El Gary, with the Kraken, where Yeli's OPS is sub 700. Contreras is hovering around 700. Gary Sanchez, in a much more limited sample size, has an 840 OPS. I mean, you're at a point where you almost have to DH him. They played him at first last night. You need him in the lineup right now. I'm not saying that's the way it has to go the rest of the year. We've got a long way to go. But right now, with some of your biggest bats as cold as they are, and Sanchez hitting the way he is, and he's a veteran, you need him in there. So he hit a solo shot. Brice Turang RBI single gave you a 2-0 lead, but they had chances all day to get that lead out there. They had runners on with nobody out in the third inning, 2 on with nobody out in the fourth inning, couldn't cash in. And eventually it's a 2-1 game in the eighth inning, and you just kind of felt like, how are we going to get this to the finish line? So they go to the bullpen. You end up with 2 outs and a runner on second base and Aaron Ashby on the hill. And he gets a ground ball to first base, but Ashby has to motor over there to cover. Cronenworth beat him. I don't know what Ashby was doing there. It didn't look like he was sprinting over there. I think he thought he had a lot more time. He didn't. So Cronenworth beats it out. That allows the game-tying run to score. Are you kidding me? On a ground ball at first base, somehow he beats it out and they tie the game. And then you go to extras. And Garrett Mitchell, great catch in the ninth inning to avoid the game being over then, a diving catch for the final out of the ninth inning. Nobody scores in the 10th inning. We go to the 11th inning. Gary Sanchez leads off with an RBI double. So your ghost runner is home. Gary Sanchez then gets to third base with nobody out, and they can't get him home. And they strand him. Eventually, they had the bases loaded in that inning, and they couldn't get another run home. So you had the 3-2 lead entering the bottom of the 11th inning, but you just kind of knew, right, that you needed to get that other run home. The Padres tied on a sac fly, another tremendous catch from Luis Lara, and that saved the game where it was just a sac fly instead of a game-winning RBI double off the wall, 2 RBI double off the wall. That tied the game. Eventually, the Padres get a runner at second with 2 down. Opposite field, single to right field. Lara's throw was a little bit high coming home to Gary Sanchez, and he could not get the tag down, and the Padres win it in walk-off fashion. You could kind of feel that coming, though. I mean, you just kind of felt it all day. Even though they had the great start, even though they grabbed the early lead, you had so many chances to blow that game open, and they were not able to do it. And you felt like at some point that's going to come back to bite them, and it did. And then, yes, the Cubs won. So now you get swept. I remember talking on the HBL morning show on Thursday morning, because you're coming off of a 5-2 homestand. You've got a 5-game lead for first place. It's amazing in baseball how quickly things can flip, where you lose a gut punch game on Monday. Then you get blown out on Tuesday and Luis Rengifo burns you. Then you cough up a game on Wednesday. The Cubs keep winning, and in a blink, in the span of 72 hours, you go from feeling really good, 30 games over 500, 5-2 homestand, 5 or 6 game division lead, and then in 3 days, you get swept. You have 2 losses that rip your heart out. The Cubs win a couple of games, and that division lead is down to 3. And that's as close as the division has been since late May. So the vibes were not good going into last night. They were not. You go from San Diego to L.A., first of a 4-game set with the Dodgers, rematch of the NLCS. Jake Bauers did say post-game Wednesday that they needed to just, his quote was, "We just need to chill the bleep out. Chill the only, I didn't say fudge out." And his whole thing was, we're just grinding. We're so in our heads right now with runners in scoring position, with offense in general. Things don't work for you in baseball when you're grinding and grinding and grinding like that. We have to loosen up. We got to chill out. We got to blow off some steam. That was his message after Wednesday's game. And then that kind of comes to be on Thursday. So the good news on Thursday heading into last night was the Cubs lost. They got shut out in Washington 7-0. So you knew you had that in your back pocket coming into the night. And they go to L.A. for the first game of 4 against the Dodgers. You've got tough pitching matchups the whole series, which you would expect with a team that is as loaded as the Dodgers are. And last night, Shaden Drowan on the hill, I thought he was pretty solid. 5 1/3, 3 runs given up. You grabbed the early lead last night. A couple of bases-loaded walks gave the Brewers a 2-0 lead. But again, like on Wednesday, you kind of had that feeling of, boy, we had more chances. We had chances to blow this game open. And again, like on, was it Monday, you had a 2-1 lead late, and you gave up a big home run. Antonio Sensatella, I don't love it right now. I know we talked about the deadline acquisitions. May has been great. We haven't seen Jojo Romero yet. I think he's set to rejoin the team in about a week after that emergency appendectomy. But they get the righty for the bullpen, Antonio Sensatella. He had 2 scoreless outings, and now he has given up runs in each of his last 3 appearances, has an ERA above 9. Small sample size, but not ideal. So in the 6th inning, 2-1 lead, 2 on, 2 out. Max Muncy at the plate. He hits a bomb 3-run shot, foul. At first, it was foul. So you're watching this game, and he goes yard, but it's foul. And you kind of wipe the sweat off your brow and say, okay, all right, just get the out here, and we survive with a 2-1 lead. 3 pitches later, gone. 3-run bomb. And it felt exactly like Monday, where you had the 2-1 lead late, and Jackson Merrill hit that home run. So now you're down 4-2, and you're heading into the 7th inning. And you get to, Yelly almost hit a 2-run shot in the 8th inning, just short of the wall. That would have tied the game. So you get to the 9th inning, and you're down 4-2, and the Dodgers have their closer, Edwin Diaz, who has not been very good. What are his numbers this year? Oh, they're horrible. They're really bad. Edwin Diaz, he was just in New York last year, right? He has been sensational as a closer for the Mets over the last 5 or 6 years. He signed a massive free agent deal to join the Dodgers. Who would have thought the Dodgers could afford him? And he goes to L.A., and it just has not worked out. He's been hurt a little bit, too. His ERA is near 12. He has 6 saves on the year. But that's their guy. I mean, that is their leverage, their closer. So you get to the 9th inning, and you're down 4-2, and I have very little hope, given what we've seen from this Brewer offense, that they are going to be able to rally. And then the first out of the inning, you get 1 up, 1 down. So you have 1 out, top of the 9th inning, nobody on base, and you're down by 2. And then all of a sudden, the bats kind of woke up where Joey Ortiz got things started. He's been really good. He hits a single. The next guy hits a single. And you get to a point, I'm going to play you the BA audio here. You get to a point where this team runs together 4 straight singles to tie the game. Are we going to play? Is it going to play? Bueller? Anybody? Here we go.
Garrett Mitchell tying run is 90 feet away with 1 out. Oh, and a line drive, base hit, right field. Hamilton scores. We are tied at 4. Garrett Mitchell comes through in the clutch.
Hey,
the Boo-Birds
he's been
are
ice cold.
out as the Brewers with 4 consecutive hits. Vesia from the set. And Bowers on the ground through base hit. Here comes Churio, and he will score. And the Brewers take the lead in the 9th.
Unbelievable.
Another 2-strike hit.
5 hits in the inning.
Bowers puts the Brewers in front.
Absolutely clutch.
Lefty-lefty matchup.
Pitch. This is the slider. I think he was waiting on it the entire at-bat, and he just bounces it through the 4-hole. Churio coming around.
McGill fires, and that is deep to right.
I thought that was gone.
There. Ball game.
I thought off of Kyle Tucker's bat with 2 outs and nobody on, I thought that thing was out.
Churio coming around.
And you even hear off the sound of the bat, I think it's gone.
McGill fires, and that is
God.
deep to right. Lara is there. Ball game. Maybe the biggest win of the year for the Brewers. They come back. 3 runs in the 9th. McGill slams the door. And the Brewers beat the Dodgers 5-4.
Incredible. Now, as BA said, you could maybe make an argument. I'd have to go back and look at all the wins and all the schedule and results. When you factor in the type of losses they had in San Diego, how hot the Cubs have been, where this team felt like they were at, they had a team meeting after the loss on Wednesday. That's never a good sign, team meeting. So when you factor all of that in, that, I think, if it's not the biggest win of the year, it's got to be number 2 or number 3. I don't think you can have it outside the top 3. Has to be inside the top 3. But just to come back the way they did on the road against that team, that showed some mettle last night. Now, a couple of unsung heroes, I would say, last night. Number 1, the guy that I disparaged about a week ago. Remember, we talked about the lefties in the bullpen that I trust and don't trust, and how I don't trust DL Hall. The numbers are good, but I don't trust him. Well, he went out and got the win Sunday when they won in extras against the Twins, and then he gave you 2 scoreless innings. So after they gave up the lead, DL Hall pitched a scoreless 7th and a scoreless 8th inning to keep you in the game. I mean, to keep you in striking distance. He struck out 3, did not give up a hit, didn't walk anybody, and he gets the win. So ever since I said I don't trust DL Hall, he's been awesome. And then the other unsung hero, I think, is Trevor McGill. I don't know that he's unsung, but he pitched an inning and 2/3 on Wednesday. Now, Uribe did not pitch on Wednesday in extra innings in a tight game, which was a big red flag. And I guess Murphy, after the game on Wednesday, just said that he had way too intensive a workload. He pitched 55 pitches on Saturday and Sunday, so they were giving him an extended break. So you didn't have Uribe on Wednesday. That led to McGill pitching in 2 innings on Wednesday. Typically, if a closer goes an inning plus, he is not pitching the next day. But they must have felt like, and he must have felt like, when this team got the lead in the ninth inning, okay, we have got to shut the door here. I mean, we have got to get this win now. And he went out there a day after he gave you an inning and two-thirds scoreless in San Diego and gave you a 1-2-3, fairly stress-free outside of the way that hit sounded off of Tucker's bat. That didn't even make the warning track, by the way, but off of his bat, the trajectory and the sound of it kind of felt like a solo shot. So he goes back out there a day after a heavy workload and goes through that order 1-2-3 with a strikeout and notches his 22nd save. I'm going to say again, and I'm going to say this every time he has success. Remember when people wanted to cut Trevor McGill? I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Trevor McGill now has a 2.44 ERA, 22 saves in 24 attempts, and a .83 whip. That's incredible. And he has given up how many runs? One. He has given up 3 runs since May 15th. 3 runs since May 15th. I thought that was incredible work from him last night, given the workload that he had on Wednesday, and you kind of wondered if he'd be available or not last night. And it looked like you weren't going to have to worry about it when you got down 4-2, but then he gets in there and gets save number 22 on the year. Now, when you look at the box score from last night, Yelly did have a hit. Contreras remains ice cold, 0 for 4. I mean, he just looks lost right now. He is now batting .257 with a .705 OPS. They have to find a way to get him going. When you look at the everyday lineup, Gary Sanchez is going well right now. Jake's been going well. Vaughn had 2 hits last night. But Joey Ortiz, he got that rally started, 2 for 3 last night. All of a sudden, Joey's hitting .246, which for him is pretty good. He hit .309 in the month of July, and he is hitting .400, only 15 at-bats, but .400 in the month of August. With all of the injuries you have right now on the middle infield, you're probably going to have to play him every day, which I think is a good thing. That's a good thing. I don't quite understand. I know he's playing righty-lefty matchups, and anytime there's a righty on the mound, he's going to play the lefty Hamilton at third. But for how hot Joey Ortiz was, I did not quite understand putting him in the cooler for a week and playing Hamilton every day because you're going to face more righties than lefties. It feels like Joey's a guy, regardless of the pitcher, regardless of whether he's playing shortstop or third base, you need him out there right now because he's making great contact. He's coming up with clutch hits. He's stealing bags. He's hitting for some power. Right now, he might be one of your more consistent at-bats. I can't believe we're saying that in August with the way his year started, but here we are. So the Brewers get a 5-4 win and pick up a game, back to a 4-game lead now in the division. Now, the other news yesterday that was not great, Brice Turang. I don't know what's going on there. Brice Turang played on Wednesday, had the RBI on Wednesday, didn't play last night. Before the game, Pat Murphy said that he had some pain in his knee, his right knee, I think. And they got an MRI, and it looked fine-ish, I guess, or whatever's wrong with him doesn't require surgery. Murphy said that, but they're getting a second opinion. Now, I don't know how many times. I have to ask my wife. I will when we start our 4-hour road trip. Before we sit in silence for 4 hours, before we do that, I'm just curious whether she's heard of that or not, because it seems to me if the MRI is clean, this is a layman's opinion, if the MRI is clean and nothing requires surgery, what would you be getting a second opinion for? I don't feel good about that. Brice Turang is one of the guys you can't lose. I mean, you can't lose Miz, and then I would think, is Turang number 2 on that list of guys you can't lose? He's got to be up there 2 or 3. So it does not sound to me, with what Pat Murphy talked about last night, doesn't sound to me like he is going to play at all in L.A., and they're going to get this second opinion and try to figure something out. It does also sound like Turang was campaigning to play last night, but they didn't allow that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going on. What would be wrong with your knee that would be causing you pain, but not require surgery, but require a second opinion? You know what I mean? That feels like a lot of different directions we're going right there. And some of it, when you hear clean MRI, and when I hear he wants to play, I feel good about, but I don't feel good about hearing a second opinion. I am going to assume that if the MRI is clean, that means that the meniscus is intact and we don't have an ACL injury, which is good news, but I don't know what else that could be. Tendinitis, maybe? I don't know. So that was news yesterday, and again, he is one of the guys on the short list that you can ill afford to lose for an extended period, given what he does for you defensively and what he's done for you offensively this year. So that was not great news heading into last night. We'll see what happens the rest of the weekend there. So yeah, back to a 4-game lead in the division. And what do we have now for the rest of the weekend? These are all tough pitching matchups the rest of the weekend. You've got Robert Gasser on the hill tonight taking on last year's World Series MVP Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Why can I say Yoshinobu Yamamoto and not Lara? I don't know. That's one I can't answer. It is another late start time, 9:10 tonight, 6:15 tomorrow. We get The Miz and the All-Star Justin Robleski, and then, we're going to get on Sunday Tarek Skubal and Logan Henderson, a guy, Henderson, that was rumored to be a guy that the Tigers wanted for Skubal, that the Brewers would not part with for Skubal. And now you might see them. It looks like you're going to see them match up on Sunday. Henderson versus Skubal, 8-3-10. 9:10 tonight, 6:15 tomorrow, 3:10. Then you're back home with Seattle Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a much-needed day off on Monday. And you're back at home with Seattle Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Atlanta Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Atlanta is hot on your heels for the 1 seed in the NL or the 2 seed as well. And then that last game they play against Atlanta, that's not going to be at AmFam Field. I guess the Brewers are going to lose a home game this year. They are playing that game at the College Baseball or the Little League World Series. And what is that, Williamsport? They play a game there every year now. And they played the Field of Dreams game last night, the Twins and Phillies on Netflix. That was kind of cool. But the Brewers and Braves on Sunday, August 23rd, are playing at the Little League World Series. Now, not at the actual Little League World Series field. That would be something. We saw games in Vegas this year. We saw what the final scores were for those games in Vegas taking on the Athletics. I don't know what the over-under would be if you let them play on a Little League field, but they'll play on the Major League field adjacent to that Little League field. But yeah, the Brewers are going to lose a home game because that's supposed to be a home game. But that's what's coming up after the series against LA. I think that's all the Brewers stuff. Yeah, the Brice news was a bummer before last night got started. What else? Any other baseball stuff going on? Oh, I did see the owners have proposed a new offering to the players with a salary cap. They are proposing a $245 million top of the cap and a $171 million floor of the cap starting in 2027. I don't think the players are going to accept any kind of salary cap, but that sounds like it's going to be the latest proposal. What is kind of annoying about that little bit of news is that you've got, I think, half of the league is lower than what would be the proposed floor of $171.2 million. Now, if you are a fan of a team that is below that mark right now, and the Brewers are one of those teams. I think the Brewers are 140, and you've got some teams that have only spent 70 or 80 million on their team, so they'd have to make up 100 million there. What's annoying about that as a fan of a team that's currently under that number is that the owners all had to approve that. Before, if that's going to be their next proposal, all of the owners had to sign off on a 245 top and a 171 bottom. But that means that a lot of the owners of teams that are currently less than 171 million all said, yeah, that's fine, thumbs up. So if you're a fan of a team that has a smaller payroll than that, you might be saying, well, why not just start spending that money now? Why? So you could spend 171. You're comfortable with spending 171, but you're not going to do that unless there's a floor? There's a lot of teams, the Brewers included, that are under that. So Mark Attanasio, who has a $140 million payroll right now, he had to approve. They all had to approve this offer. So Mark looked at that and said, yeah, we can afford 171. Well, why don't we just do that now? Let's pretend the salary floor exists now and start spending a little bit, 30 or 40 more million a year. But I saw that was kind of the latest proposal the owners have come up with. All right, real quick, let's talk about the Bucks and the schedule. This won't take long. The schedule was released yesterday. Oh, by the way, did you see Giannis? This actually pissed me off. So did you see one of the little bits of frustration among Bucks fans with Giannis? And there hasn't been a lot. I mean, I guess we don't know totally what was going on behind the scenes. It sounds like things were not great the last 2 years with Giannis and management and all of that. But one of the frustrations for Bucks fans is that Giannis continually spent a lot of his off seasons playing for Greece. And look, we understood that's something that he wanted to do badly. He was on record as saying he wants to play for them in the Olympics. He wants to play for them in the European Cup. He wants to represent his country of Greece. And even though Greece is not the one that is paying him the big bucks to play in the NBA, and even though he's putting himself at risk for injury and he's not fully recovering in the offseason because he's playing so much international basketball, we knew as Bucks fans, and Bucks management knew, we've got this once-in-a-lifetime superstar, and we're the Bucks, and we're kind of probably going to have to let him do what he wants here. I compared it on a group text thread to the Bucks are a 6, and they're dating a 10. And when you're a 6 dating a 10, there are certain things that you have to concede because you are outkicking your coverage by a lot. So if the 10 in the relationship wants to do a thing or two this way or that way, you kind of have to accept that. The 6 is probably going to have to do more household chores. You're going to have to make up that deficit somehow. That's kind of what I compared it to. Well, I guess Giannis decided this week that he is not going to play for Greece this summer, and that is because of a request made by the Miami Heat. This made me kind of mad, honestly, because Giannis, we know how hard he plays in the regular season. And he gives it everything. And that's one thing we love about Giannis. He always seems to, except for last season kind of, he always seems to give it 110% anytime he's on the floor. He's trying to have a huge game. But by the end of the year, he's exhausted. He's a big man. He gets banged around. He gets knocked to the floor a million times. So he almost never took the full summer off, where Bucks fans would say, Giannis, why don't you take 3 months off here, allow your body to recover, and actually come back to our team refreshed and rejuvenated, the team that's paying you $200 million or whatever it ended up being by the end of his career. Why not rest and rehab and recover from a long season instead of putting your body through more basketball for 2, 3, 4 weeks of EuroLeague play or Olympic play? I guess I understand the Olympics more than some of the other smaller tournaments, but why not allow your body to heal? And I do think a part of the reason that Giannis has had a lot of injuries lately is that he just never gives his body a break. He never takes a full summer off. And that was something Bucks fans talked about a lot. So year one in Miami, for something that Bucks fans asked him to do, like take it easy a little bit. Year one in Miami, he says, I guess I won't play for Greece because the Heat asked me not to. I mean, come on, dude. So that was news. But the schedule release was yesterday. The full schedule is now out. And I knew, we've talked about, without Giannis, this team is probably not going to have as many nationally televised games. With Giannis on an 82-game schedule, I'd have to go back and count them up. I would guess the Bucks averaged between 30, 35, maybe 40 nationally televised games a year. Whether that's on NBC or ESPN or Amazon Prime or TNT or whatever, I would say almost half of their games were on national TV for a lot of the Giannis run in Milwaukee, from probably 2019 all the way through 23, 24, that 5 or 6 year stretch. Even last year when they weren't good. They have on the docket this year, they went from about 35 nationally televised games down to 2. 2 nationally televised games. And guess what games they are? They are going to be on ESPN on Wednesday, November 18th, when the Bucks are in Miami taking on Giannis, and they will be on Amazon Prime on Thursday, January 28th, when Giannis and the Heat come to Milwaukee for the first time. The other date where they come to Milwaukee is on Friday, March 12th. Now, there is a little bit of flex scheduling that happens in the NBA where if the Bucks overachieve or they're fighting for a play-in tournament spot or whatever happens, maybe they would add some games at the end of the year. But right now, I thought they'd still get 4 or 5. That's a small amount. 2 is it. We are back. I mean, we are fully back to 1997. Every game is on over-the-air TV on Channel 24, and they have 2 nationally televised games. That is very 1996, 1997. We are all the way back to the mid to late 90s. So that came out. They open in Washington on Wednesday, October 21st against Chris Middleton. And the home opener is against the Bulls on Friday, October 23rd. And I don't know what to expect. I'm hopeful that a young team with a good head coach, which I believe they have now, I am hopeful that they will overachieve. I am hopeful that they will hit the over on what pretty much looks like the over-under. The over-under estimate seems pretty solid on all books now at either 24.5 or 25.5. So nobody's expecting a good year. The national TV contracts aren't expecting a good year. I'm hoping they surprise some people, but, if this season ends with them winning 24, 25 games, I guess it wouldn't surprise me. As long as we see development from Khalil Ware and Braden Burries and guys like that, that's fine. But, yeah, it's feeling like the national perspective on the Bucks is that they're going to be one of the worst teams. I saw the NBA Power Rankings on ESPN came out. They are the second to last team, right ahead of the Kings. That's it. So the national sentiment of year one post Giannis is not optimistic. All right, that'll do it for us here on your Friday morning. We will be off next week. Have a happy, safe weekend. Enjoy your work week next week. We will come back rejuvenated and refreshed, like Giannis coming back from a Euro World Championship game. We will come back on Monday, August 24th, and we will be in full-on pennant chase mode and full-on NFL and college football mode. Enjoy the week. We'll chat with you then.